To defeat hell, you must remove from it the sense of mystique and power that it relies on to cause the meek to cower and intimidate the wretched. You must build from the ground up the concept of duty, fate, and of sacrifice within a populace, not because there is no other choice, but because in the face of so many choices, for a Prussian, there is no other option. To endure is to be human, and to test one's humanity, you must endure the very worst that this brief life can offer. Such is the way of the Prussians, a people built of such spirit and faith that it mirrors the very metals that they are so famous for. For Prussia, the people are yet another ore, something to be exposed to catalyzing heat and pressure until they are ready to be forged into implements of war, unbreakable and unrelenting. Many faithful nations confuse the eagerness of the Prussians to be in the very worst of the fighting with a similar suicidal process of the Red Brigade. But the biggest difference between the Prussian Stoßtruppen and the brave members of the Red Brigade is that the Prussians very much intend on making it home. It is for this reason that the Prussians are known to have some of the most brutal training of all the faithful nations. Prussians long to be the first to take the field and the last to leave it. They wish to be where the fighting is the most brutal, where the enemies of Christ are at their strongest, for they seek to show them the fury of man. If God created man in his own image, then is not the rage and violence and brutality that the Prussians can unleash divine in its own right. The lightning-fast and unendingly brutal attacks of the Prussians are the perfect blade to carve a hole in the lines of the damned, creating a rupture through which the infernal dreams of the slaves of Satan bleed away, like ash upon a breeze. Don't be fooled, however. Prussia is no simple war machine. It is a complex society and enjoys a unique place in history, making it truly one of the greatest powers in faithful lands. The Free State of Prussia, while technically a vassal of the Holy Roman Empire, is a powerful and fiercely independent nation, founded in the lands once held by Teutonic knights. The knights first marshalled the local warriors to fight the forces of hell in 1190 AD, recalled from the Levant to face the encroaching danger from the north. The state is governed by an ancient and outlandish type of governance called democracy, a relic of a bygone age of antiquity, where the people elect their leaders via popular vote, much to the horror of many of the ruling houses of Europa. But such is the industrial and military might of Prussia, and so great is the demand for their weaponry, finely engineered machinery, and chemical products, that few dare to criticize this form of government openly. Every 4 years, the people of the Free State vote for their representatives for the Landtag, the legislator that sets the laws and nominates the cabinet of ministers to govern the affairs of the state. The Prussian Secret Academy of Sciences is the leading institute of scientific learning in chemistry, physics, and engineering, rivaling even those of the scientific institutes of the Church itself. The Sacred Academy of Sciences counts amongst its achievements the use of chlorine gas as a weapon of war, as well as ammonium fertilizers, which have saved the faithful from starvation as their trade routes have come under the pressure from the heretic fleets. While the Kingdom of Aragon and Castile seeks to find their salvation in the New World, the Free State of Prussia treats Prussian soil as it does Prussian people, relentlessly conditioning it to be that which is needed, rather than that which it seeks to be. The Prussian military is a cornerstone of the armies of the faithful. Officers, most often scions of military families, lead the army, the middle class supplies the army, and the peasants and common folk compose the army. Military officers hold precedence over civil officials in the state apparatus, and it is seen as a rite of passage for anyone aspiring to be a political officer to serve the Duke of New Antioch for a 4-year rotation. Such a time is deemed essential, as it teaches any aspiring politician the importance of New Antioch as a centre of the resistance against the damned, but is also the best place on earth to ensure the experience of the most relentless and violent assaults that hell can muster. When not trying to survive the ever-thrumming bureaucracy that is required to keep the war effort going, it gives these would-be pillars of democracy experience in the second most dangerous activity to take place in the lands surrounding the Levant: diplomacy. Connections made during these years, alliances forged upon the battlefield, and tactics honed and developed against the damned could mean the difference between victory and defeat during countless battles in the future. To support their military machine, the Free State has industrial might to match it. The Prussian iron foundry in Gliwice is especially famous for its ability to create artillery and tanks with advanced orichalcum alloy. Many of its engineers have served at New Antioch and brought their frontline knowledge to their laboratories. Iron and coal are the cornerstones of the Prussian economy. Foundries and smelters feed the ever-hungry workshops and factories, where the common folk labour in 4 shifts to create the precision-engineered machines, automobiles, weapons, and munitions that are the cornerstone of the wealth of the nation. Each one is designed and produced to exacting standards, as no corners can be cut if the equipment is to perform as it should in the very worst of conditions. The capital of the Free State is located in Königsberg, where the Landtag assembles and where the cultural life thrives, from operas to parades and from poetry to political debate. Prussia has been known within cultural circles as the home of many talented playwrights, composers, poets and philosophers, many of whom have spent time in the army, and who bring a cutting level of insight to the nature of man and the eternal battle against the forces of hell. Their talent is sought in courts and parliaments all throughout Europe, and they are a vital component of the diplomatic arm of the Free State, the gentle bastions of its influence and import throughout the world. Kingsburg, however, is never far from the long shadow of the Prussian military, and it is also where the armies of Prussia muster when they march to defend the borders of Europa or head towards New Antioch. At the heart of the city stands the Grand Cathedral of Königsberg, where the elite Stoßtruppen are sworn in every year. Around it spreads the vast necropolis of heroes, a truly colossal cemetery of elaborate tombs and monuments for those who have fallen in the Great War against Hell over the last 5 centuries. Walking past the miles of graves and statues of the fallen is a somber experience, as the devastating toll of the war is laid bare. The heretic forces lead the faithful in the arms race of tanks and other armoured vehicles. They are heavily armoured, fast-moving, and often armed with terrifying hell-forged, sacrilege-type tank mortars. These weapons are designed to penetrate trenches, pillboxes, and other defensive structures by employing technology that briefly tears through reality to puncture the defences. They target the occupants within using ammunition that unleashes echoes of the reversed words of God's creation, reverberating at bone-shattering volume throughout the structure under attack. Specifically designed to undo divine work, they peel away skin, nervous systems, and finally the flesh and internal organs of any mortal, layer by layer for each word as God's creation is undone, causing excruciating death as their target slowly becomes unmade. To counter these armoured threats that have been used time and again to break through their lines, the Prussians have developed many battlefield innovations, from anti-material rifles to specialist close-quarter guard corps units. As the sacrilege cannons are slow-firing and hard to aim, the Prussians counter them with lightning-fast close-quarters tactics. The swords of the guard corps, commonly called tank splitters, are specifically designed to disable or destroy enemy armoured vehicles. Developed by the Prussian Institute of Metallurgy, their edges are orichalcum and titanium alloy, and these near monomolecular blades can cut through most vehicle tracks and armour with ease, disabling them while the rest of the unit swarms the tank with incendiary grenades. Speed is of the essence here, as heretics are well aware of this tactic and counter such attacks with elite legionnaires of their own, who compete with each other in capturing rather than killing the specialist Stoßtruppen, so they can be sold to the agents of the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent as punishment for their audacity. Though the Free State of Prussia is governed by an outlandish system of democracy, where each citizen can vote for representatives of the Landtag to decide state affairs, the nobility remains a strong military tradition and has funds to buy officers' commissions. Many families can trace their lineage back to the Teutonic orders, who once conquered the lands of Prussia. Many units of the Prussian army disallow women in combat units, but scions of noble lineage often exercise their privilege of joining any regiment they wish. Frederica von Gals's armour, seen here, is handcrafted by her personal armourer, and unlike the mass-produced suits of the rank and file, it allows sufficient speed and mobility for the furious and bitter melee combat the role of the unit requires. Menser dueling is used to assess the required bravery of candidates of the tank splitter units, and Hauptmann von Gals carries many scars on her face to prove hers. Trench clerics who fight in the Great War include a vast array of both ordained and secular fighting ministers of the Holy Word. A good example of such are the specially trained Militärgeistlich that the Church militant of the Free State of Prussia dispatches to counter the heretic legion's sorcerers and high priests, who pit their faith against the fiendish goetic powers of the Inferno. Due to the importance of their role, and because of the high blood price the heretic commanders have set for each chaplain killed, a price which is doubled by Mammon for captured individuals, as these priests are prime material in constructing the dreaded Goethic warlock. The Church and the Free State go to extraordinary lengths to train and equip their chaplains with the finest weapons and armour. In battle, these Prussian trench clerics don thrice-blessed armour crafted in the sacrosanct workshops beneath Culm Cathedral. They are styled after the armours of a bygone age to inspire the troops, but their functionality is state-of-the-art, as they utilise the latest metallurgical innovations from the Königsberg Institute of Warfare. The location of the workshops is not without controversy, as both the Free State of Prussia and the Holy Roman Empire claims ownership of Cologne. This dispute stems from the time when the Free State seceded from the Empire after holding its first democratic elections. These elections were originally instituted specifically to gain independence from the Empire, but proved immensely popular with the people and have remained in place ever since. Luckily for Prussia, the Church considers the war effort more important than petty regional squabbles, and has thus far placed the cathedral under their care in order to keep the war production going. The chaplain's superb armaments are not just limited to protection. They also carry special grenades filled with myrrh, hemlock, and burning incense, as well as classified chemical substances. When detonated, the shrapnel from these grenades scatters embers that rapidly burn through anything caught in the blast. The standard issue melee weapon of the Fel Kaplan are swords. Sometimes they are blades fashioned after the burning blade carried by the angel that protected the Garden of Eden, while others are smaller copies of the mighty brands carried by the paladins. Many frontline chaplains are repeatedly reprimanded by the Church for their overuse of inhaling holy smoke, a chemical compound which uses many of the same ingredients as martyrdom pills. But due to the extraordinary mental and physical toll the war takes on their minds and bodies, the practice persists, even though many chaplains are lost to overdosage or have to be retired from active service due to their minds and bodies finally succumbing to the combination of stress, wounds, and damage to the nervous system the holy smoke causes. The Great Hospice of New Antioch treats hundreds of such cases each year, withered husks of men who rarely regain their sanity. Each chaplain carries a reliquary with them from which their original name, Capellanus, is derived from. The Fel Kaplan depicted here, Freinhar Rainer Schwenter of the Swords of the Lord Division, goes to battle with a carved wooden backpiece depicting the Prussian eagle, and a reliquary said to hold a feather of the angel Uriel within. protected by semi-sentient barbed wire that wraps around those foolish enough to stray too close, constant danger from the presence of prowling death commandos and artillery witch bombardment, the heretic trenches are a formidable obstacle for the faithful. The pyramid-shaped pillboxes and casements of the infernal forces have turned back countless futile frontal assaults with withering machine gun fire and devastating hell-wrought artillery. Surprises are difficult to mount, especially when the moon waxes and the horrors created by the path of the beast prowl no man's land. The weapon of choice against these formidable obstacles in Duke Constantine XI's arsenal are the Stoßtruppen, the elite shock troops of the Free State of Prussia. Even in this nation known for its militaristic ways, the Stoßtruppen are the elite. Chosen from mountaineers and veterans of the fierce battles against the northern heretics, with the cream of the combat engineers and marksmen mixed in, they are called the Duke's Spear, for their speciality is to pierce the enemy lines and clear the path for their reserves. Training and selection process is ruthless. Athleticism is emphasized, as is the ability to rapidly advance over any kind of terrain. Just as important is to learn how to make use of both camouflage and even the tiniest bit of terrain for cover. They learn to hit their targets in total darkness, and they train wrestling with the hulking communicants. But the most important selection criteria is to have iron in your soul. To engage with the armies of the damned in close quarters requires a certain kind of soldier, one who is willing to detonate their last grenade when their own innards have been ripped open by the claws of a werewolf, or wrestle a heretic anointed and look into their eyes, see the hellfires raging there, and not flinch, but instead bring their trench club down. As the Stoßtruppen gather for an attack, no sound is heard. Each assault has been carefully practiced, and any signs needed are given with hand signals. Heavy weapons of the unit open the assault, scattering the enemy and forcing them to take cover. Then, it is a mad dash across no man's land. Violence commences as the flamethrowers sweep the exposed enemy, followed by a flurry of grenades into the trenches and dugouts. Then the assault groups spread, like the fiery wings of an angel, clearing the trenches, sweeping behind the enemy lines, and disabling lines of communication as well as any rearguard defensive units. In close quarters, the Stoßtruppen favor daggers, trench clubs, entrenching tools, and automatic pistols, though their favourite weapon by far is the grenade, carried with them in great quantities and used to take out strong points as well as to reach behind loopholes and clearing entrances to bunkers and pillboxes. As for ranged weaponry, submachine guns and pistols are favoured, and feature many modifications compared to standard issue versions, typically with larger magazines as the brutal close quarters combat depletes ammunition very rapidly. The Stoßtruppen uniforms reflect their role: mountain boots and leather-reinforced jackets and trousers that protect their vital areas against barbed wire and enemy blades. Their armour contains far higher quantities of orichalcum than those of standard footsloggers. This allows for much lighter and more flexible suits and helmets, which offers superior protection. The famed spikes of the pickelhaube helmets are detachable, and are usually not worn in the front lines as they make their wearers easy targets. Compared to many other faithful soldiers, the pride of the Free State's armed forces are allowed a great deal of freedom of decision-making on the battlefield. Many warbands are given high-level objectives and encouraged to find their own way to achieve them over days, weeks, or even months. Only single-minded determination can carry the Prussian advances through their enemy lines. One must learn to love carnage and death, for in melee there is no room for mercy or hesitation. A Stoßtruppen who survives for any length of time begins to resemble their hell-twisted enemies more and more after each grueling encounter. Such is the price that the Great War extracts. The Prussian yeoman is often deployed in a support role to the main assault, but one no less important for not being in the vanguard. Yeomen tend to be younger troops, earlier in their training, and yet to achieve the plaudits and abilities that will see them rise to the rank of the Stostruppen. Yeomen will often be armed with bolt-action rifles and expected to become excellent marksmen in support of the rapid assault. Anything that managed to survive the main force will need to be picked off before it can do any damage, and flanks must be watched for infernal enemies that deny the laws of physics in their efforts to damage the plans of the Free State. Most importantly, yeomen must learn to maintain their calm during battle, hence their reliance on the punishing yet deadly bolt-action rifle. If a yeoman cannot aim steadily under the pressure of war, how could he possibly be expected to take a trench or charge a tank and maintain battle doctrine? Those who prove themselves able to withstand the mental rigours of war will often be armed with flamethrowers, set to work in the trenches, clearing out enemies and burning whatever remains. It is best to assume that the infernal dead might not remain so, and physical remains should be burned beyond any hope of functioning were it to somehow be reanimated. The very bravest among the yeomen will often be charged with the duty of playing a musical instrument, such as the glockenspiel. Such troops will be placed with the main assault, their impassioned playing driving the troops of the Free State to levels of courage rarely seen. Every legend of the Stostruppen began life as a yeoman, risking it all and finding courage in God and their fellow man during battle with the forces of hell. While lightning-fast raids that deliver intense close-quarters firepower and fighting are the calling card of the Prussian armed forces, they do not allow a dogmatic approach to fighting to tie their hands when alternative tactics are required. As such, they have been known to field small numbers of additional units in order to complement their main tactical approach. Sniper priests who have endured endless hours of sharpshooting training will often be fielded to provide overwatch and covering fire. These incredibly devoted warriors are known to ritually blind themselves, putting all their faith in God's ability to guide their hand and carry their sacred rounds towards the heart of the enemy. There are no better marksmen in all of Christendom, and it is said that, no matter the battlefield conditions, nothing can interrupt the God-given accuracy of their fire. Combat engineers will be employed when the battlefield presents risks that need to be dealt with via the delivery of precisely placed high explosives. Sometimes the threat presented by the battlefield is too much, even for the extreme athleticism and training of the Stostruppen. Infernal shrines, living barbed wire, walls and bunkers infested with the Black Grail or the residues of foul Goethic magic. Anything and everything may need to be destroyed as the forces of the Stostruppen make their way to the enemy. Combat engineers can also close off entire flanks with well-placed explosives, forcing caution from any opposing forces that wish to attack their flanks and live. Sometimes even the rising tide of the Prussian advance needs a beachhead, an unbreakable, unmoving and unflinching presence that can absorb any counterattack and push it back. For this reason, the Prussians have been known to deploy mechanized heavy infantry. They will only ever be utilized on a case-by-case basis, and only when absolutely necessary. Even then, the chosen soldiers will have been trained up in the specific needs of the Stostruppen. Easily the most important and impactful of all the additional units a Stostruppen warband might field is the combat medic. The risky nature of the Prussian battle doctrine means that the rate of injuries can be high, and getting injured soldiers back into the fight is vital. Combat medics have a sole focus, which is preparing injured soldiers for the next advance. They utilize a range of combat drugs in order to help their soldiers overcome the physical and mental shock of the injuries they have endured. And Prussian soldiers have been witnessed fighting in the trenches with missing arms and legs, terrible burns, or brutal shrapnel wounds. Overall, the style of fighting that the Prussians engage in is brutal because the war itself is brutal. The only way to get rid of the cancer of the infernal and the damned is to dig into their fortified positions and root them out, or crack their armoured columns on the march, before they have time to dig in. This is where the Prussians excel, a lightning blow against temporarily exposed weakness that shatters their enemy's ability to fight or mount further offense. The Prussian Sturmtruppen are one of the finest examples of military might that mankind has to wield against the armies of hell, although there are some within the church who find the brutal and demanding training they endure, as well as their willingness to run endlessly into the breach on the battlefield, to be somewhat disquieting. However, in the mess halls of the Prussian military, songs are sung and heroes are lauded, for all true sons of democracy know that this great war will be ended by the charge of the Prussians.